Hi, this is Nanette Hosenfeld with the Great Basin Seasonal Outlook for March through June 2019. Looking at temperature and precipitation over the last 30 days across the Great Basin, the image on the left shows temperature, and you can see that generally the Great Basin was running a few degrees below normal, but most places were within that 0 to -5 degree departure from average. As far as precipitation, it's a pretty interesting picture. Over the past month, it's been very wet across the entire Great Basin. You can see anomalously high precipitation across almost the entire area. Since October, we've had quite a bit of precipitation, with the highest, abnormally highest areas of precipitation across the southern and southeastern part of the Great Basin. However, most of Utah and Nevada have seen above normal precipitation, with portions of southern and southeastern Idaho above normal as far as precipitation since October. Taking a look at the snowpack and comparing that to normal, you can see we're in pretty good shape across the entire Great Basin. Most areas are at or above normal, with really no basins reporting below normal snowpack. It's pretty exceptional to look at southwestern Utah. They're in at 170% of normal, and some basins in the Sierra Nevada are in similar territory. So a very robust snowpack across the Great Basin with far above average conditions across the southern part of the area. Taking a look at the drought monitor, despite all of this precipitation and the winter snowpack, we are still listed as being in a moderate drought across portions of the Great Basin, large portions of the Great Basin. Really the only area without some sort of marcation is portions of western and southern Nevada. As far as the outlook, drought removal is likely for the majority of the area, and that is likely due to the excess of precipitation that we have received this year. Continuing to look at drought, this is a new product. It's called the Eddy, and it's just another way of looking at the drought's effect on vegetation. You can see that really the only areas marked here as being dry are across southern, southwestern Nevada and far southeastern Utah. And those are just in that ED0 to ED1 category. So really, we're looking pretty good as far as drought across the Great Basin. When our fuels are quite high across the Great Basin, you can see large areas above 25% fuel moisture. Looking at the 100-hour fuel moisture, again, with all of the snow in place and the precipitation that we've seen this winter, really we're sitting quite high as far as fuel moisture out in those 100-hour fuels. And finally, looking at the 1,000-hour fuels, you can see those higher elevation areas with the bigger fuels, 1,000-hour fuels, again above that 20% range. So with all of that snowfall and the precipitation, things are quite wet across the Great Basin still. So we've kind of looked at drought, weather, fuels, and the snowpack. What happens from here? So looking ahead, the Climate Prediction Center is calling the next 8 to 14-day period for cooler and wetter conditions across the Great Basin. So we will see a continuation of the cool, wet pattern that we have seen for the majority of the winter. So not much change in the next 1 to 2 weeks. And what about El Nino, La Nina? That can have an impact on the weather patterns in the Great Basin. So taking a look at the IRI CPC outlook, most models are predicting us to be in neutral territory, so not too much of an influence from El Nino or La Nina expected in the upcoming season. So looking a little further out, the 1-month outlook from the Climate Prediction Center doesn't have anything too significant painted across the area. You can see equal chances of temperature and precipitation being anomalous across the area, so nothing too abnormal expected through March. Then moving into April and June, it looks like we will start to warm up, the potential of being above normal for the April to June period. And this is significant because this is when we really look at those grasses starting to dry out across the area. So with all of the precipitation we've seen over the fall and winter, that can lead to some pretty exceptional grass growth, which is kind of the first key for large grass fires. And then the second thing that we need is for that grass to dry out. And so right now the Climate Prediction Center is forecasting that we will dry out pretty rapidly in the April to June timeframe and be quite warm. There is a potential, as you can see from the map on the right, that we could see above normal precipitation across the eastern part of the area, but the large majority of the area should see around normal precipitation and above normal temperatures. So putting all these pieces together, what does that mean for our fire season? For March, we're going with normal for a large fire potential. Nothing too unusual is expected for the month of March. That continues into April. The entire area is expected to see normal fire potential. That will change moving into May. We start to see the potential for some grass fires beginning across the south in May. Now, this is assuming that we will see our typical warming and drying trends across the area. If we see an unusually cool or wet next few months, that would result in a delay in the onset of fire season across the south. And so this May outlook does come with that caveat that if we are wetter and cooler going into May, we will not see above normal fire activity. And then in June, we're looking at that area of above normal activity to expand a little north and east across the Great Basin as we continue to see drying of the fuels across the southern part of the area. There is some concern across portions of northern Nevada and northwestern Utah. They've also seen abnormally high precipitation, and we typically see quite a good grass crop across those areas in winter with high precipitation. However, there is some uncertainty still with how much carryover fuel will be available from last year with the amount of snow that was seen across this area, and that leads to compaction of those carryover fuels and less is available. So we're kind of waiting, holding out to see what the fuels look like as far as carryover fuels across the north before we include any areas further north in the outlook. So that's it. Please feel free to contact us. Our information is on the screen, and you can also find us on Twitter. Thanks.